to this podcast from the House of Gemba HR. We had done a podcast sometime back in June 2024. That was an overwhelming success, and we have received a lot of requests for a future series of podcasts. So we are starting today again. And in today's podcast, we have a very interesting and trending topic, which is agentic AI and financial services. And we have two very eminent speakers with us today from the field of finance as well as education. I would be introducing more to you, each of them individually. Our first panelist tonight is Devarshi Nandi. Devarshi is the Barbara and Richard M. Rosenberg Professor of Global Finance at the School of Business and Economics at Brandeis University. His primary research focus has been on applied AI, fintech, corporate finance, and innovation. So prior to Brandeis, Devarshi was a faculty member at the Schulich School of Business of York University in Canada, as well as a visiting professor at the very prestigious Sloan School of Management at MIT. He currently also serves as a mentor and advisor to several AI, biotech, fintech startups in the greater Boston area as well as in India. So we have a very eminent speaker in Devorshi today, as well as we have Sanjay Sachdev. So Sanjay is presently managing director of Freedom Financial Services. He's focused on advising financial service businesses in India as well as across Southeast Asia. He's a board member of HDI Magma General Insurance, a Poonawalla Group subsidiary, as well as BOB BNP Asset Management, a subsidiary of Bank of Baroda. Sanjay currently oversees business expansion for First Trust Portfolios, a global asset manager and the largest manager of active ETFs in the world. He was also the founder president of the US India Investment Forum and was ranked by the Week magazine and one of the 50 emerging leaders in India in 2004. He's an ALI fellow from the prestigious Harvard University, and he holds a certificate in corporate governance from Wharton School of Management. Also has an MBA from Thunderbird Phoenix, Arizona in the US. He has a degree in law and business from the University of Bombay as well. So I hope that is a decent introduction of both of them, and we will get started with the podcast right away. I will hand over the floor to both you, Devushi and Sanjay. You can please go ahead now.
Thank you, Purushottam, for the kind introduction, and it's lovely to be here with you. And thanks to Gemba HR for putting this together. Sanjay, wonderful to join you in this.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I guess we are going to talk about AI and financial services. So perhaps maybe if you have any opening thoughts on what the state of the situation is or what are the challenges are at this moment, we could start with that and then kind of figure out how we bring most of the interesting challenges and opportunities.
Thank you. Sure. Professor Devarshi, first of all, you're an authority on this and you've been on the cutting edge in shaping financial services, especially for the AI factor impacting financial services. I think that what is happening is that AI is reshaping financial services broadly, the asset management space, primarily through efficiency gains, expanding analytical capacity and new operating models. And what we are seeing is that adoption is moving beyond pilots into production use now for generative AI. And it's having an impact across the board, especially, machine learning, generative AI, LLMs are starting to be used in investment research, especially, and idea generation. And that is taking, years of experience and value that humans used to have available at a moment's notice through generative AI. So I think that there are risks associated with this too. It's not something that it's all very positive. The positive aspects are pretty obvious. Both operations, middle office, back office, trading and execution. Also across the board from a distribution and client servicing standpoint, with virtual assistants and faster onboarding. But, there are other issues which face cultural, what you would say is barriers. Yes, absolutely. And that's something that we should discuss.
Sure.
It's not just all positive,
Yeah. No, I think I completely agree with you, particularly if I think of wealth services, There are some easy picks, easy areas to identify, like, client research, acquisition, client onboarding, customization to different types of clients. And then also reporting on the back end, reporting, communications, compliance, risk management, or servicing for that matter, as you just explained with automated agents. They can handle a lot of that. I think just maybe trying to separate the socio-economic cultural, the socio-cultural barriers vis-a-vis the more of the financial moat, economic opportunities a little bit. The crux of it comes down to investment analytics, portfolio management, risk analytics, and the advice that people give. And there are many aspects here to thread, but one of the obvious ones is from a financial advisory standpoint. How do you see the liability issue playing out? I mean, do we want to keep a human in the loop always? Can we get to a point where we can take the human out of the loop?
Right,
Any
right.
thoughts on
No,
that aspect?
yeah, that's a very, very good point. And, I could not emphasize more on the fact that these complex models, especially deep learning and LLMs, can be quite opaque. Because at the end of the day, it should be remembered that asset managers have a fiduciary responsibility and cannot claim that AI has decided something as a viable defense. So that lack of transparency raises substantive legal and regulatory risk, in my opinion. Also, as we all know, data in is data out. So if you have models which have poor data associated with it and poor lineage, then the bias in the training data or privacy issues that create compliance and performance issues are substantial in this case. So, and also, at the end of the day, I think that one has to be very, very careful, because this widespread use of these models and relying on a few third-party providers. There are quite a few of them. There are about besides the hyperscalers, as you know, there are quite a few others who are also providing these services that can produce correlated behavior.
Mhm,
Pro-cyclatability is a big issue, and there can be common points of failures.
mhm.
So a lot of regulators across the world, including the Bank of England, the BIS, ECB, the SEC in the US, have flagged these issues. And I
Absolutely.
think that it is up to the industry practitioners to, while being aware of the opportunity, because, at the end of the day, yes, asset managers are facing margin compression. And from that perspective, this is a very, very good step forward. But we cannot just think of only of profit. We have to think about the investment community and how it impacts investors on a larger
Mhm,
scale. So that is a critical fine balance that companies will have to
mhm.
play.
Absolutely. I mean, picking up on your compressed profit margin point, um, active investment is kind of has been on the decline for the last decade and a half almost, or maybe 2 decades now. So definitely, it's something uh, that can AI is something that can certainly help with the active management industry, because it brings in new ideas and new algorithms at a fraction of the cost that it would otherwise have been in the old days. So let me try and create a hypothetical here, because I have been thinking about this. And since you are so familiar with both the US market and the Indian market, I think it might be a good idea for us to also think about implications of this in a market like the US, where there has been a lot of advances made in this space, or are being made in this space, and India, where advances are being made, but I still feel that there is a sort of a blue sky kind of a approach that could be taken. I mean, in and perhaps that might be able to accelerate the adoption much quicker than it would. So the hypothetical I have in mind is actually about Tesla. So right now, Tesla with their auto drive features, obviously they have some regulatory restrictions, constraints on making sure that the driver is attentive on all of that. But even with that, if you are on full autopilot with a Tesla, and if you live in certain states where Tesla is able to offer the auto insurance, what has effectively happened is that the company now is taking on the liability themselves, because in case their algorithm makes a mistake, they are the ones who are ensuring that it wouldn't. So do you think any kind of that kind of a framework is feasible to think about in the financial services
No,
industry?
very, very, very difficult to imagine, especially because there is a need for stricter transparency in the asset management world specifically, and data governance is very, very key. So taking human oversight away 100% is, going back to your first point. I think it's going to be very, very difficult and should not be even tried, because there are certain obligations from a regulatory perspective, because regulate you cannot take regulation away from the from the business, and this is a very highly regulated industry.
Absolutely.
So emphasizing governance, testing, monitoring, third party risks, and especially consumer investor protection, it becomes very, very critical.
Hmm.
And especially when you're dealing with, you know people's savings, lifetime savings and money.
Absolutely.
Of course, in Tesla, you are dealing with, you're
You're
risking with
right.
lives. Yeah. So, so one cannot say that either one is, less riskier. But having said that, I think that managing money and making sure that that money is has that fiduciary responsibility that you have to the next generation, for a lot of savers, or for that next car that they are trying to save for, or the
Mhm.
house that they are trying to save for. I think there is a higher obligation for the industry from that perspective, that they cannot just take in new technologies like AI
Mhm.
without being cognizant of the governance element of it.
Mhm. Yeah, no,
From
I
a
mean, I totally agree from you, and just so that also maybe for our viewers, there is regulation in the Tesla situation as well, because there is different levels of self-driving, and so currently there is no fully autonomous
right, right.
situation. Um, the interesting um, I think the difference though is there is a lot of inherent historical bias and other things that are there in the financial services industry, which might make things even more complicated in terms of fully automated advisory, which whereas here we are relying on live images and lidar and other data coming in from the road. So definitely different, apples and
Yes,
oranges. But
yes. I think
but then
full. Yeah, go ahead, please.
no, 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 please.
No, I think that a full taking out full human oversight over generating alpha has still not been established. I mean, humans plus AI collaboration is probably a good dominant practical model. If I would put that in perspective, because at the end of the day, firms have to treat data as a strategic asset,
Mhm.
and redesigning end-to-end workflows around agents, investing in governance and talent. I think this is where I think the opportunity exists today. Of course, things can change because we are in a very dynamic environment, from a technology perspective, with robots coming in, and a lot of different new models will of course pop up. Specifically to India, I would say that, with the advent of new asset managers that are coming up, because the regulator has been issuing new asset management licenses a lot more now than in the last few years. And these new asset managers that are coming up can't be launching the 60th growth fund for India when there are already 60 growth funds out there from an active management standpoint, which is why I think that there will clearly be a huge opportunity for innovation and for bringing in AI technology into the industry. So I think that is something that I am expecting in the shorter term than in the long run, as far as India is concerned.
Yeah,
Though it already exists, as you know well, it already exists in the US now. US is way far ahead comparatively in the cycle because of AI productivity and analytic forces that are acting as a big multiplier in asset management.
absolutely, absolutely. So, one thing I think, since I'm also a professor at a business school, one of the things that I see on a day-to-day basis is how the next generation, the students, current students, future money managers and investment bankers, their take on AI and how they are using AI currently. And one of the issues, and this kind of goes back to the point, is that we cannot think of financial services without a human in the loop. And so the human has to have the foundational kind of
Capability. Yes.
exactly the building blocks of
Yes.
of economics, finance, global relations, everything that's related to their investment strategy. They should have a solid understanding of that. The temptation is, so I think we can both agree that solid foundation paired with the agentic AI applications would
Yes.
be a
Yes.
dominant strategy.
Absolutely.
But the temptation currently that comes to or that we see, that I see in the education sector, is using AI to get an edge while learning the foundation. In some ways, that can actually cause irreparable harm in one's understanding of the basics and the foundation in a way that then perhaps will manifest in the workforce later on. Um, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, any thoughts? And
No, you are absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. I think it's extremely important for young, young people who are studying today, who are in colleges, prestigious schools like Brandeis, doing their MBAs. I think it's very, very important for them, especially at a lot of colleges and schools in India, where this is going to be a very, very big budding opportunity for them, is to recognize the fact that you cannot take the human piece out of it, and much more so than the onus lies on that human actually to make sure that they are well trained, well equipped, well read, and totally up to date in terms of what is happening, because sometimes having half knowledge is more dangerous than having no
exactly,
knowledge.
exactly.
And we are in many ways sort of like being in the wild west as far as AI is concerned.
Mm,
These are very strong, highly potent, powerful productivity and analytical forces. However, having said that, they can also be very risky and have a huge negative impact if not
mhm,
monitored and governed in the right manner. So I think
mhm.
success will largely depend less on the technology than on the data quality or the organizational redesign or the rigorous oversight. Oversight, and that has to come from humans.
Yeah,
And that's why it's very, very imperative for young people, professionals largely, who are either not just necessarily in the industry alone, but who want to enter this industry in the long run, to be realistic about their expectations.
I I I I I think that you make an excellent point with this because the the whole it is not an isolated point. I mean,
Right.
AI is a very high reward, high risk technology that we are
Yes.
avoiding.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
we will be very much integrated with this technology going forward. We are still at the beginning. I think there is uh, no way that we can say that we can shut our eyes to this technology and continue without it. I mean, that's not going to happen. I think
Right.
that we have to therefore be cognizant of the risk, develop an infrastructure, develop a governance system, develop perhaps independent certifications, accreditation bodies that kind of deal with these issues across the board. Because I think that the problem is it's a circular economy, and the problem is like starts right at the beginning, and you kind of have to make sure that you're adopting it the right way in every state of application. Um, I want to say that that the so I'm in Boston. Brandeis University is in Boston, and then Boston has a big, as everybody knows, a big ecosystem of huge talent that comes out from all the
Yes.
universities that is here.
Of course.
And applied AI is one of the space where I think there is a lot of interest, a lot of young talent coming out. All the universities have excellent programs dedicated to it. And also, there is a lot of community and um, societal organizations, both sponsored by the Massachusetts state government as well as by the companies. Boston is also home to various large financial services companies, Fidelity, State Street, and others. Um, so there is a lot of active thought going on in the ecosystem. And I wish that there is more of a national and global uh, effort, I would say, in putting this together, putting together a framework, putting together almost like a UN um, level agreement that we wish to abide by and go forward. And there are many such efforts underway, obviously, which countries are agreeing to. Um, how do you feel that, or do you have any thoughts on, such international
Yes. Yes. No,
treaties on?
in the wealth management world, there is the CFP body which exists, which is in 27 countries.
Mhm.
With my past association, where I was a global chair, the first Asian to be the global chair for the certified financial planning body, I do know that there is a lot of emphasis how to bring, countries together on a certain common ground, especially as far as the AI technology is concerned, and how to manage the governance around it, especially on the wealth management side. But on the asset management side is largely very, very country dominated. The Bank of England, uh, the regulator there is very, very has a very different set of regulations compared to what the SEC in the US has. But everybody is looking to the SEC to a large extent because this is the most developed market in the world, and this is where AI has basically taken off. And I think at the end of the day, what there has to be a realism of expectations about what current systems can and cannot deliver. I think just blindly using AI for the sake of margin compression for asset managers is maybe not a good strategy unless and until it really creates value for investors. At the end of the day, that's really what will matter more. So I think we have to move beyond using AI just for alpha generation alone, but
Mhm. Mhm.
also there are so many other elements of the asset management world. The mid office, the back office, the distribution, how that is all managed. And all of that is going to be, I will have a lot more meaningful productivity and signal generation basically for the
Mhm.
future of AI. That's where I believe things will be headed.
Yeah, I also fully agree with you. I do not, I believe that AI is a productivity multiplier. I do not see it as a cost. Obviously, it does reduce the cost in the short run, but I think that, as always, we should be focused on the long run, and we should think of it as a multiplier force on productivity efficiency gains that would allow us to kind of elevate many of the things from where we are now. And
Yes.
investment, and we need to invest in it. I mean, we have to keep in mind that it's a long term play, and we need to invest in it appropriately, and
Much
not
more
focus
so.
on.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Much more so for quant, focused asset management businesses. Like for example, First Trust is very very focused on quant discipline.
Mhm.
So that really becomes, and taking away the human element there is not going to be that easy. You can use it for data,
Mhm. Mhm.
for data generation and data use, but beyond that, everything else is a human. You cannot remove the human away from that.
Yeah, I think these are big big issues, and I think that we are almost out of time. So maybe we can we hope that um, these are issues that everybody starts thinking about, and then we have to delve into a lot of these, hopefully in more detail in the future, and we can talk about them. Um, I, my parting thoughts to our audience would be to think about AI as a force multiplier, to embrace it, and to think of using AI as part of your of basically utilizing your foundation knowledge and essentially making it much more productive. What you could have done in 2 months, you can now do in 2 days, and that's sort of the way to look at it. Do not kind of use it as a shortcut to supplement your foundational knowledge, because that kind of is not conducive in the long run, I believe. Sanjay, your parting thoughts on this?
No, very well said. I don't have anything else to add beyond what you have already shared. I think that you have, shared uh, the main point about this whole discussion has been that let's not just get carried away with AI. Let's make sure that we manage the risks along with the opportunities with it. That's it.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
and
you. Thank
look
you.
forward to your thoughts. Please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devorshi and Sanjay. I think that was a very interesting discussion, and maybe I'll just quickly summarize what we talked about today in just one or two sentences. What I can understand is that AI is a viable option in financial services, but not without risks. Proper governance is of paramount importance. The workforce of the future hence must upskill themselves in this very high reward, high risk tool. And that is something that can really be a viable option in the long run. That more or less kind of summarizes what we have discussed today. And I think it has been a very interesting discussion. If there are more questions, etc., that we receive from our audience, we will definitely take that up as a part two in our series of podcasts that we are doing right now. So today was a very engaging discussion, and I think we will look forward to more of your participation in future discussions as well. Thank you again, Devoshi and Sanjay. This has been a really interesting session. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much for the
everyone.
kind
Thank
invitation.
you.
Thank you for
Yeah,
organizing.
thank you.